Street gangster, I don't know how to be nothing but that. Google me, man. Call anything in the 504 and ask about me. Yeah. Straight G. Street gangster, I don't know how to be nothing but that. I'm just a hustler, I'm a mastermind. I organize a lot of shit. I touch gon' be something. I'm a mastermind. I know how to use my brain and organize a lot of shit. Everything I touch gon' be something. Watch them come up.
Welcome to ThugCrowd Radio. Please listen to this important disclaimer in its Welcome to ThugCrowd Radio. Please listen to this important disclaimer in its entirety. All participants of this ThugCrowd Radio episode are characters. None of the stories told during these episodes are based on facts, truth, or reality. All works of fiction displayed during this episode that resemble real-life situations are coincidental and are not meant to serve as guides or tutorials to commit any crimes in any country. Please consult an attorney for local laws and regulations. And as always, trust your inner criminal.
Being a reading told her, and she stopped me. She said, listen.
Just a few,
So,
including not being, not being talking just for a second. But speaking of technical difficulties, what's up, everybody?
Yo.
There we go. Hey.
We're off to a
Sorry,
good start.
we just had to entirely rebuild our stream. You'll notice it doesn't look quite as good as usual because the box we were streaming from just disappeared from the cloud. Great features of the cloud. Your boxes can disappear and you don't know why.
Oh, the music's also on in the background still.
Yeah, I'm gonna pot it down. Yeah, it's I think it's a pretty good job for less than an hour's notice that our box got deleted.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're doing all right.
I like the excuse they gave as well. They're like, "Oh yeah, you have you pay for the box, but we don't actually charge you for it. You have to pay us regularly."
Yeah, they don't auto pay, auto bill kind of things.
And it's like in cents. We're talking cents. Like they're like, "Yeah, you're 1 cent short. Like we're gonna delete your box now." Like what? What is this?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Does
So,
this? It's just it's a good business model.
what did everyone get up to in the last 2 weeks that we've missed?
Oh man, there's a lot.
I started hitting
Boy.
the hack the box.
Yeah.
That's a new one
Oh,
for me.
You were streaming that for a bit.
Yeah, I was streaming my fail. It was pretty fun.
What are your thoughts? Yeah. What are your thoughts overall on it?
I like it. It actually it's pretty fun, and it's it's fun enough to keep your attention where you're not thinking of, man, I should be doing something else and breaking into something else. So it's
Like I should be hacking for work instead of hacking for fun.
yeah, kind of. I mean,
Yeah.
I will say there's a few things that I think are just inherent to CTS, just certain riddles that just don't need to be there, that would never be in a real world kind of thing. But other than
Yeah,
that,
straight.
it's really fun.
Yeah.
Man, I did some crazy stuff with radios. I was using a Blade RF to generate some signals with GNU Radio Companion, and then using the waterfall feature on the Hack RF Porta Pack to then look at the signals I was generating and decode some of them. It was pretty cool, and by just connecting them with a SMA cable and a couple of attenuators, it means you don't need a cage. So that was pretty fun.
I mean, you don't need a what? Like a Faraday?
Yeah, because you're not actually transmitting anything. It's just straight connected one radio to another. But don't try that if you don't have attenuators, or you will permanently damage your hardware. Do the math first.
Is that the whole
look it
thing
up.
where they're like, don't turn it on unless you have your antenna connected?
Yeah, or don't so some of the HSDPA stuff I used to work with back in the day. The first time I went into the lab, they gave me this repeater, and it's got the massive loaders that are supposed to go on. And a loader is basically just a whole lot of resistance that goes on the end. And I didn't know. I was this embedded device. So I pulled out 100 screws and 7 layers of shielding, and I'm trying to probe it, and as I power it on, the guy like quickly powers it off, and I'm like, what? He's like, you got to put a loader on, you fool. I was like, what? He's like, you're gonna blow it. I was like, what? And an old radio guy just told me off, and that's how I learned.
Yeah.
Don't break radios.
I never understood it. I still don't actually fully get the physics behind it, but I know enough that I definitely should always connect an antenna.
Yeah, or at least like you can buy a pretty cheap set of attenuators as well.
Attenuator,
like negative 30 dB, just bang on the end of it.
I'll have to pick your brain about the actual technical behind it.
Pick Pike's brain. I pick Pike's brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Resident radio nerd.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Radio
Yeah,
thug.
he's off fighting fires at the moment. So
Oh, is he?
yeah.
Ah, that sucks.
Yeah, he's doing the Lord's work.
He's doing
Lord's
the Lord's work.
Oh.
Then again, the Lord did start that work for him. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
40
maybe,
chess.
It was a mage cast like a fireball into the bush, and so we should probably get into this week's news.
Action news.
Let's do it.
Yeah, the actual news. And the first story we have, let's just get these show notes in this chat just again for everyone. The first story we have is actually the Capital One hacks and subsequent arrest of, I guess not yet convicted, but overwhelming amounts of evidence against the individual.
Yeah, this is my favorite story of we've had in quite a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Just because the OPSEC is so bad that it might as not exist.
Oh, was it? Yeah, I didn't get a chance to actually read the story, so I don't know if we want to go into super huge detail, but it was.
Yeah. Well, it's the person who who stole all the data, uploaded it to their personal GitHub, which their GitHub account was literally their first and last name, and then shared it. Shared a link, or it was GitHub, so it was openly searchable. And so the way it was found is someone emailed the Capital One, responsible disclosure email address, and it was, hey, you guys might want to take a look at this.
Wait a minute.
First name, last name, it's all the sensitive info.
Was it malicious? Do you think though, from reading the?
It was. It was very, very malicious. Yeah.
What the?
So basically what happened was on the 17th of whatever month it was. I forget what month. I could look it up, but it was the 17th of the month, and I think it was a bug bounty person, in fact, like a white hat of some kind.
Yeah.
Someone doing the Lord's work was found open buckets, and those open buckets had data in there that some was tokenized and some wasn't, and it affected 100 million US citizens and about 6 million Canadians.
Yeah.
And then on the 19th they discovered that they'd been breached. And if you have a look in our little Safari zone at the bottom, there's some extra that has the details, including the Department of Justice complaint, which has like screenshots and all that. But it actually will so they used Tor, they used the VPN, and then they spoke about it on a Slack.
Oh god, hold up. The audio is all fucked.
Oh, what?
It's just buzzing. Super loud. Yeah.
Is it me?
No, it's the actual. I think it's the box.
Dan, can you restart the stream?
Or it's something in the interface. God, Dan.
Wow. This is a cursed episode.
Where'd it go? Boy.
Fuck! I don't know where it's coming from. I didn't touch anything.
Oh, Dan, we can't hear
Didn't
you
touch a thing.
in Zoom. Oh my god.
Dan?
I can hear him in the stream, but I can't hear him in the... He's muted in whatchamacallit. Dan?
Yo.
Oh,
There we go.
restart the stream.
That's amazing. Yeah, I can't hear you guys.
It's buzzing.
what happened. But computers are evil. And that's all I have to say.
There we go.
I can't even watch the stream. I gotta watch these Amazon ads again.
I
God
know,
damn
me
it.
too. This is having to rebuild audio loopback drivers on the fly. That was really fun. That was super exciting, especially while hearing a zapping noise in my
I
brain.
apologize for the zapping noise, but that wasn't part of our next challenge. It might have been. Should clip it and just like see if you can find any data in it anyway.
Right.
Like,
Right.
Obviously.
You know
So
what?
yeah, so we're talking about the Capital One hack.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. TLDR. Let's get right back to it. The attacker used their own GitHub, GitLab in their own name, uploaded stuff to it. It was searched. Someone found it and then reported it.
Yeah, and then the person who did it replied to 4octets on Twitter and saying, kind of exactly how to commit crime.
Oh wow.
It's pretty like it's linked to debit cards that pay for things and just everything you shouldn't do. They used Slack to brag about how they use iPredator to Tor, and then the FBI agent in the DOJ complaint actually says this IP belongs to iPredator. This is a Tor exit node.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of overwhelming stuff. So read into that. We put a few extra notes in so you can look for yourself. And there are some. Also, there's more information if you are affected by it, which if you're an American, you very well might be, and what you can do about it. Cool. So that was the optic fail of the week.
Yeah.
It's a big story. It's going to be huge. It's going to dominate. I think probably like Equifax, right? I mean, it's got it.
Yeah, I think the main thing between this and Equifax is this is like a really commonly used technique in the bug bounty scene of incorrect S3 bucket permissions. I don't know if it was S3. I didn't check exactly what storage it was, but yeah.
Yeah, and the DOJ write up is actually very complete. There's a lot of
If you want to see what would happen if you did bad things and what the FBI would write about you, then you can read it and you won't do those bad things. Because don't do that stuff. So let's move on to the next one. We have Apple's AWDL protocol. So the airdrop stuff and AirPlay all over again has been plagued by flaws that enable tracking and man-in-the-middle attacks. So there's a lot of details about this, like different DOSes and man-in-the-middles and stuff that occur throughout the article. But if you actually check in the show notes, you'll also find that there is a POC on GitHub where you too can, if you airdrop a contact to another machine, you can use BTLE, Bluetooth Low Energy, to pull that off the air. And pocket. So everyone who's going to DEF CON and is going to be sharing their location with their friends and their contacts and stuff, probably patch. I probably don't do that with airdrop either. Maybe use
secure channels.
Yeah, like you burn a Game Boy.
You burn a Game Boy.
Yeah, you burn a Game Boy Advance. The SP is smaller. You can fit it in your pocket. Don't worry about it.
Folds up.
Yep.
Which is really handy.
It's good stuff.
What do we have next on here?
So this is no surprise. Siri over here is your drug deals and sexual activity. I mean, we've heard every smart speaker under the sun getting attacked so far. So I guess this really comes as no surprise.
Yeah, more of the same. The Amazon one. I was surprised at the number that they gave. It was like 0.5% or something of all like, voice activation things were open for up for grabs for researchers.
Yeah,
This I think it's I don't know if it's anything like out like that we haven't heard before in the other ones. Just bringing everything else into the news. Everything it's a news story now because of the stuff we've heard from other people.
yeah. Google, Microsoft, Amazon, everyone's doing it. And I guess one thing you can take away from this is if you are going to have a sensitive conversation, whether it be of a sexual nature or a business nature or a crime nature or anything you want to talk about that you don't want to hear somebody else listen to, don't be in range of your smart speaker. Don't take Siri to the meeting rooms at work.
Make sure your Roomba is out of the room before you initiate sexy time.
Don't let your Game Boy Advance speak.
Some people are into the Roombas watching though, so I mean,
with Roombas with googly eyes and a knife duct taped to it. Yeah, that's weird. That's pretty weird. Cool. So the next article we had was a bunch of vulnerabilities in VxWorks RTOS. So some of the stuff that was being affected was sonic wall firewalls, and there is a pretty big list of CVEs that are all kind of bad. There's a bunch of like memory corruption leading to RCE, heap overflow in the DHCP offer ACK, which is layer 2 stuff. So lol. Handling of unsolicited reverse ARP replies. Just a logic flaw that I'm sure will be quite interesting to use on the job.
It looks like they basically just didn't know what to do with packets at all. That's what I'm getting from this long list of CVs is that there's like, you know what, just anything you put in a packet we'll just execute it as code.
That is quite a slam, man. That's a good one.
Yeah. Like, the whole stack, OSI model, every layer. Let's make a mistake. Let's make at least one mistake on every layer.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Just tumbling down.
But yeah, so I guess if you are using those sonic wall firewalls and other affected devices listed in there, then you should probably patch again, update, consider a different product if maybe that's easier.
Yeah. Oh God.
Fun times.
What's next? FSB contractor owned, Tor Deanon, and more.
Yeah. So hackers, which it doesn't say who. I believe it doesn't say which hacking group.
Yeah.
Digital Revolution. They breached an FSB contractor, and they found a bunch of interesting projects they were working on. They stole something like 7.5 TB of data from the contractor's network. Like, you're a defense contractor, and you're working with FSB, and 7.5 TB gets exfilled, and you don't notice.
Yeesh.
Yeah.
It says
That's easy to happen though, man. I think 7 terabyte. I don't know. 7 terabytes is kind of a lot, but
just leaking out of your network.
Like for over how long of a period of time though? Does it say?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I don't think it says. Apparently, the hackers are going by the name of O Virus
Mm,
with a 1 and a dollar sign.
dang.
Yeah, so
Uh,
very advanced.
but yeah, one of the projects that was leaked was again something that we've brought up that a lot of people don't realize is happening is Tor de-anonymizing, which is legit. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Don't
every
rely
time
on
I
just one
keep
thing.
trying to open that article, I get slammed with a nice break, and
yeah.
I can't get through the whole article. What's the Tor de-anonymization part?
So that was one of the projects that they were working on.
Yeah.
The FSP
Oh, the
were working on.
FSB guys. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
it's a contractor working for the FSB.
I gotcha. So,
Uh,
I mean,
they also stole apparently a whole Jira instance.
It's funny that there was that IDOR in Jira that we were in our show notes 2 weeks ago, maybe a week ago, maybe. And yeah, you just take secure attachments, and that was very nice. We actually missed an article here because it looks like the show notes have a bug. I pasted it into the Twitch chat. This is an interesting one as well. So Immunity Security, who make the product Canvas, if you're not familiar with Canvas, it's I guess a competitor Metasploit in some ways, penetration testing toolkit. It contains a working Bluekey RCE, and they're selling it, and people are mad because Canvas is for sale. But welcome to the world of exploits and
just welcome to the
pen testing.
world, right?
Yeah.
Like, since when has this not happened? Like, I don't get why anybody would be surprised by it at all, and they're gonna try and shame them. What the hell?
Yeah, mad about it. Like, it's crazy. Like, you think about basically every bug that hasn't been patched yet, or even has been patched, ends up in Metasploit. There's just like hundreds of modules or more. Like, that own stuff. That's what
Yeah.
penetration tests do.
I, for one, want to see exploits start coming in loot boxes. So you open up a loot box and you see what kind of exploit you get.
With
Like, you might get a you might get a legendary Bluekeep exploit, or you might get like a common idol somewhere.
God damn
Yeah,
it!
you
You
get
get
a-
a buster.
Another
Fucking bullshit.
You get a WordPress XSS, like reflected XSS. Like, god damn it, that's 12 XSSs in a row.
Nobody uses this plugin either.
It's a plugin for writing blog posts. That's what something else does.
Shit.
That's terrible.
I fully support
Cool.
it. Whatever, sell it. Like,
Yeah.
good for him. Good for them. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all the scary people have already weaponized it, so yeah,
Right.
go for it.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's wormable. Like, so was everything else. Like, there was decom RPC in like 2000 and something was also wormable, and then got wormed, and like the internet didn't change.
I think it's a small contingent of people that are upset about it, though. I really do. Like, it seems to be kind of the same people that get upset about exploit code being posted and like
But do you
proof of
think
concept ransomware, stuff like that. Like, whatever.
do you think black hats are buying Canvas?
No, absolutely not.
Like, yeah. I don't think black hats are. I don't think black hats are buying Canvas.
And even if they
Yeah.
are, then good for them. They're doing well.
Doing well.
Silly.
Nah, but yeah,
I-
I mean, in all honesty, though, it's never not happened. The only difference maybe is that we're more in tune with what everybody's doing. Like, everybody knows everybody's like thought stream, because we just post everything we think and feel online these days instead of keeping a little mystery to stuff. But I don't think anything's different. I think it's been like this since the 90s, literally.
Yeah, it's very much a first to market thing. Like this would have been anyone else had they, done this first. The story could have been about any number of, security companies.
Rapid7.
Yeah, Rapid7 selling blue key exploits.
Literally. But it's only a matter of time until this exploit is everywhere else. Like the timer is ticking for it to only exist in Canvas. Well, I mean, to where anyone can buy it, but where like you said, the people who are truly scary and spooky spies. I'm sure that it's been weaponized since those boxes came out.
Oh yeah,
like a month, 2 months ago.
But this is the one that came from the NCSC in the first place. So this has been probably weaponized for like 5 to 10 years, hasn't it?
Likely.
This came from the spy industry.
Yeah,
they handed it over to Microsoft.
That's the thing. How much time it has been used against us before it got leaked.
I can't hear you.
Right.
Yeah.
What did you say?
Like how long has it been used against us?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, exactly.
How many times?
Yeah, for sure. Like if it wasn't, if it was still like super, super useful to the scary people, it wouldn't have been necessarily
disclosed.
Probably released, disclosed as it was, because, you can only imagine.
I'm thinking they used it and they're like, I'm purely speculating here, obviously, but thinking they used it, their infrastructure got compromised on whatever target they were on, and they were like, oh shit, they have been hit.
I'm sure they did use it and did bring a stupid excuse as always, like terrorist prevention or that kind of stuff. They probably got way more data than they should.
Yeah, well, there's probably more to it still than we even know right now. Like, there's literally probably still more pieces to that puzzle.
Yeah, security is just fucking illusion sold by marketing.
It's one of those things. Like a couple of years down the line, we'll probably know more about the story. But
we'll get another Canvas module.
Yeah, there'll be a book this time about the history of.
It's just a never-ending stream of Canvas and Metasploit modules to slowly bring us up to speed with what the governments have been doing for years and years and years and years.
Yeah,
that's not a secret anymore.
So, moving on to our next story. This one is pretty short, kind of scary, kind of funny, kind of more scary. But there was a ransomware attack against South African infrastructure, and it left Johannesburg in the dark. So, don't get ransomware at the power plant. Yeah,
man.
I mean,
sometimes I wonder if like people who ransom stuff even know what they're ransoming.
Yeah,
like
I mean,
how many times has someone been like, "Give me $5,000 for your network back," and it's like, yeah, it's a power plant. Like,
I think sometimes.
Yeah, I mean,
like I think
it's not a good idea.
the MTA in San Francisco, I'm pretty sure they knew.
Yeah.
MG.
Yeah. Shouts out.
There's some that do their homework, some that don't.
Yep.
Yeah, I wonder if it doesn't actually say if they paid out on it or not. Which I'm wondering. I feel like it says they got hit.
There hasn't been any updates on it because there's no electricity.
Can't get out news. Time to bust out IP over avian carrier.
Hell yeah. Well, I mean, they got lions. They could just tie it to a lion. Lion's pretty harder to stop than a pigeon.
Yeah.
But moving on, this is like an interesting story. The next one is Microsoft owned GitHub is blocking developers in US sanctioned countries. So countries that are sanctioned by the US are not able to use GitHub, which is inevitable, I guess, since the Microsoft purchase. Microsoft being obviously a heavy US company and following the rules following the rules where they like. But a developer in Crimea was unable to had limitations placed on his GitHub account because of US sanction regulation.
Just like everything Microsoft touched, they fucking ruin it.
Yeah, I mean, well, previously GitHub was an American company before Microsoft, I believe. But I guess they were, following the open source stream.
Yeah, they were more permissive than Microsoft.
Yeah. And there's also stuff where it's a lot of the people, or I shouldn't say a lot, but some of the people that they blocked access to were just Iranian nationals living in other countries too. So,
yeah, but they got to do it. I mean, like, it's a legal requirement. It's not like GitHub's just decided to be dicks. Like, we know some of the lawyers over there, they're good guys. But
yeah, if it's a US-based company, they don't have a choice to comply with the law. Otherwise, they're gonna get in trouble and lose everything.
Yeah. And to your point earlier, GitHub was around before, but GitHub as a company or an entity, now that it's part of Microsoft, they have a hell of a lot more to lose now that they're Microsoft too,
Exactly.
Yeah, we'll go at them just because it's Microsoft.
I think though that with the nature of Git repositories and complete clones, moving to a different platform or a self-hosted platform or something really shouldn't be too much of a problem for the developer, other than a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
It's a pain to move. You move the project. It's like when everybody was moving off SourceForge. People kept going back to SourceForge looking for stuff, and it just wasn't there anymore. Like, where is it?
There's GitLab, but all use GitHub first. We gotta look at GitHub first for source. Or are you using GitLab first? I don't know a single person that's gonna type GitLab before GitHub.
Yeah, I guess maybe we might start to get page.
Yeah, I mean, there's a large push for GitLab when Microsoft bought GitHub, kind of almost in anticipation for a thing like this happening.
All the free software, like movement, they're gonna flee from that.
Yeah.
I don't see anything wrong with it. I think people got upset about it, but whatever. I mean,
in the end, it's if you don't agree with it, like use a product that doesn't do that. That's it's unfortunate that it's happening.
GitHub.ir. Do it up.
I mean, that is the internet, really. Like at the end of the day, you're using a service that most people use free GitHub as well. They're not even using the paid, like for private repositories or whatever. So if it's free, I mean, you just take what you're given, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like GitLab's going to get some business off of this, for sure.
Yeah.
Then, as it should.
So,
GitLab's decentralized, right?
You can run your own instance, but they also have their.
That's not decentralized.
They have their own.
To the same backend.
Yeah, they have their own site too. Yeah.
Then they're definitely going to get clipped by export law. I mean, it's literally illegal. It's just illegal to sell or provide products to these countries.
So
that's what the sanctions. That's exactly what the sanctions are for.
Yep.
So moving on to the next one with still with Iran, we have Iranian. This was from a couple of weeks ago. Iranian state hackers targeting LinkedIn users with dangerous malware. Lol. Because we know everybody who uses LinkedIn is obviously IQ above average, maybe below average. But yeah, attributing so FireEye have attributed it to APT34 being Iranian based, where yeah they're targeting people over LinkedIn, which kind of makes a lot of sense since a lot of people like to tell you where they work, what they do.
Someone was talking the other day, or I heard someone talking about, I don't remember where, creating like what should we call it? Creating honeypot users and adding them to your corporation in like important positions in order to kind of catch this before it reaches other users.
That's pretty smart.
Which is, yeah, I thought was a pretty smart way to go about it. Like, so that way, if you, you know, if someone is targeting your employees, your security team will be notified of it.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Did was it public? What company was doing that? I haven't heard much about that actually.
Yeah. I don't know if it was.
It was a bigger one.
I mean, I'd hope so.
Yeah,
I
imagine.
Honestly, the smaller the shop is, usually more nimble they are. They can move quicker.
Yeah.
I guess.
I think we have a flash news. IlSec got arrested.
Wait, what?
Really?
Yeah, he got arrested for sweating like 70 charge.
Oh, nice. Well, I guess we didn't see that coming. No shout outs to IlSec. Satellites will drop on your house, and you'll be loving me, baby.
Play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Yeah.
Of course. That's what happened when you're stupid.
Like a shopping cart slipping on ice. So, yeah, but I do wonder a little bit about attribution in this as well. Like, there's APT34 appears multiple times, like Iran, blah, blah, blah. FireEye is saying it, but is it? Who knows? I find that really weird.
Yeah, I mean, probably just off TTPs.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. They do a pretty good job, man. I mean, like they're not just throwing things at a dartboard. They usually have their reasons.
But we've seen like a whole bunch of Iran versus US stuff recently. You know, Trump going on about targeting missile control systems, and then by the way, the US won, and then like there was the disruption campaign, like that Iran were running against US entities and stuff like that. It's all been very tit for tat, back and forward. So I always wonder about this actual attribution.
It's good that when you're done with high school and in school, that all the petty garbage stops and we can all act like adults. Oh, wait, no. It never ends.
so it says the industries that they targeted were energies and utilities, governments, and oil and gas. They utilized... they said they were from Cambridge University, a researcher. And then they used a fake domain associated, like to look like it was from Cambridge. Hack. cam-research-ac.com.
Okay, it was not even like homoglyph, nothing like ID manipulation. It was just a fake domain, not the same name.
Yeah, it's just it's like it's what you see a lot. But
invoice.pdf.exe.
Yeah. Those are
so I guess
insanely successful.
Moving on. Moving on, we have this is something we saw in Australia when all the latest encryption round stuff happened, where we heard from our Home Affairs Minister that you just need to accept the new encryption laws because it's best for everyone. And so the U.S. Attorney General says that Americans now should accept security risks of encryption backdoors, which is crazy.
That's
absolutely
crazy
insane.
because they don't. If there's a backdoor, a hacker gonna find it, and they gotta remind themselves that it's the only thing that protects your fucking money in the bank. If there was no encryption and shit, it would be chaos for real.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's just one of those things where it's again, when someone doesn't know what they're talking about, like what they say comes off absolutely tone deaf, and this is just another example of that. People who don't know about computers making computer laws, or trying to make computer laws.
Yeah,
Absolutely insane. It was just like as soon as what was it? Fire Sheep, and like as soon as that like came out right back in the day, like you instantly saw everyone pick up like start encrypting their traffic. But it was like that's why, like that's literally why. Like
yeah, and I mean the wall of sheep. Even but like if you have ever seen the wall of sheep, it's like that. But then it was a Firefox plugin, and now everyone can have it wherever they are.
Yeah, I never got a chance to use it. I
Things
saw
needed
it.
to change,
What's that?
and now they're just basically flipping. The authorities are basically flipping on this. But it does mention about the UK here, but it also the same thing happened in Australia as well. Apple, Google, Microsoft, WhatsApp. Everybody basically said no. The laws were amended a little bit, still not too great.
yeah. Well, let's since we're running a bit short on time, let's just wrap up the rest of the news here. Real quick, I have Pro FTP arbitrary file copy.
Yep, Pro FTPD again. Stop running FTPD in 2019. Like, if that's not, it's just please, SCP exists.
Yeah, exactly. Like, why the fuck would you create just open layers that we all know that is vulnerable? But yeah, people still use cPanel and all that shitty stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
Banks.
And if you are looking for an alternative way to set up FTP for someone to use, you can set a user's shell to SFTP only, and then give them an FTP client that support like basically all of them, and they'll use SCP without even knowing it, like SFTP through SSH. So that's the pro tip. SFTP only. Yeah, you can jail, you can do whatever you want. There's a million things, ways to harden it. We don't have to run an FTP server, and the person you're giving it to doesn't need to know that it's not FTP. So do that.
Next up, Phineas Fisher denies working for the Russian government.
Lol.
Like,
yeah.
I like
Good-
that he's
good
still
for
out
him.
there like contacting people too. Like
Good for him.
he's still out there like clapping back.
Yeah, I mean, whatever, man.
Man, the next
Maybe
one.
he does. Maybe he doesn't.
The next one though is some serious business. The like Siemens contractor doing logic bombs and spreadsheets. Oof.
Oh, what's he trying to do? Like, is he like trying to keep his job, making sure that he gets rehired because the spreadsheets explode?
Yeah. So I mean,
it was basically a time bomb. Logic bomb would crash spreadsheets after a certain date, resulting in Siemens hiring the contractor to fix the latest bugs.
yeah.
And that's illegal, friends.
Yeah. Now faces up to 10 years in prison, $250,000, or both. So.
He's American. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yikes.
Some prison time. Don't do that.
It's critical
Yeah,
infrastructure.
So review the 10 Acts commandment.
Yeah.
So the next one, Apple has reportedly trying to buy Intel's modem division for at least $1 billion. Who cares about the $1 billion? That's, play money for companies like this. But what is interesting is that then Apple will have their own technology to put into their smartphones for 5G. And if you've been following anything over the last year, you'll know there's a whole range of bullshit going on with 5G networks and handsets. And so Apple having their own will allow them to hold a control over their own stuff without having to rely on another vendor. So it could be a good investment. It's probably not going to be too... if anything, it would probably be detrimental to Android devices or other 5G modems, since they probably aren't going to license it out and keep it for themselves. But they're not a vendor.
Anyway, I think we'll take a 5-minute break, and we'll get back to it with our guests for tonight.
Sounds good. Let's see if we can do it with audio, not destroying my world. Yeah, we'll do the break, and we'll get things going.
Yeah.
Better go.
Back in.
You call yourself a man? You know you're a lying, low life.
Yeah, it works. Good shit. I'll be right back.
Alright, so Michael, are you ready? How would you like to we're just...
You want to mention that I have a zillion letters after my name and it doesn't fucking matter, so you can say
yeah, so we're just going to ask you basically who you are, what you do.
Yeah, my audio clicker, alright? Great, cool. I have
if you know how the fuck we ride.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
You'll get on before we start
Someone
popping.
relay?
I hit a flow switch.
That sounds okay. You made it, but it's...
You perfectly, so that's not a big deal.
Well, let's just see if this is a connection thing or if it's an audio thing that I need to hash out on my end. So you other guys, am I coming through clearly or is it intermittent?
No, it's good.
Alright, cool. Then I'll stick with the setup.
Yep. There is audio. It's playing music. I'm listening to it. I can hear the music if I unmute the stream.
Up the ThugCrowd.
Oh, apparently they can hear us still.
That's great.
Well, I'm glad I didn't say anything too much.
I mean, honestly, you could say some pretty bad stuff and it doesn't even matter.
I'll work on that. I'll think of something.
Yo.
Yo.
We're back. Look at that. Extremely professional. Totally not a super hard cut. Back to reality. Look,
professionalism is measured in the amount of sliding volume scales.
Look, man, I'm a DJ because I use a crossfader.
It's over 9,000.
I would have hooked it up to my actual mixers and everything, but we had less than an hour, and we made it happen. We made a show happen for you guys.
We're gonna talk about I guess we've labeled it open source pharma, but we've got Dr. Michael here with us, and why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, so I'm the chief spokesperson for the Fourth Ease Vinegar Collective, which works in human rights and global health. And the sort of overarching agenda is to try to bring access to medicines and medical technologies to people who don't have them. And the methodologies that we employ are trying to develop techniques so people can manufacture their own medicines and medical technologies on their own and increase personal and bodily autonomy.
That is very awesome. So I guess, like, how long has the organization been running for? How long have you guys been at this?
Well, we've been public for about 4 years. We were underground before that, and so maybe totaling a a dozen years. And yeah, we've been sort of publicly active for about 4.
That sounds absolutely awesome. I guess there's, especially in United States, where a lot of medications are not subsidized by the government, and people are paying through the nose for things that they really need. It sounds like it's a pretty good cause.
There are 3 main reasons why people get disenfranchised from access to medicines or medical technology, and they are price, legality, or lack of infrastructure. And in first world countries like the US, the first 2 are the main culprits, and in third world countries, it's the third. When you empower people to manufacture their own medicines, you can bypass all of that.
So what's I guess there's a lot of sanctions and strict regulation around the manufacture of pharmaceuticals. So what kind of areas are sort of the places that are the least, the place where you can get the most done with the least sort of being held back by all those regulations?
Well, this is only if you have respect for those regulations. I mean, I say that not in jest. It's an important distinction to make, that one is held back by unjust regulations only if one wishes to abide by them and not run the risk of running afoul of them and having legal repercussions. But on one of the things that we're very pleased about is that because we are empowering people on an individual level, it's very hard to detect that people are actually running afoul of these sorts of regulations. And so it's also very difficult to prosecute. And so people who decide to actively take their health into their own hands, they do run a non-zero risk, but it is sufficiently less than if someone were to say, set up shop and start manufacturing drugs that they were selling or distributing for free or whatever. If people are making their own medicines on an individual level, that is lower risk than you might think.
Yeah. So like people making their own mind for themselves, and not being sketchily selling it on the street and people not knowing what's in whatever it is, because they
right. That's a very different animal. Yeah.
Yeah. So with I guess what's sort of the barrier to entry for that kind of thing? How is there like restrictions on what's required to be involved with, like to take your health into your own hands? Or
mostly it's the will to act. So in the first world, and especially in the United States, there's a tremendous culture of outsourcing of responsibility of any task that is seen as specialized. And increasingly, everything is seen as specialized. It's a cultural gap. In the United States, and I don't know where all of you guys are based. Can you just tell me where each of you are geographically?
Well, I'm in Australia.
The US.
From Canada, Montreal.
Okay, cool. So here, I just have a round robin question for each of you guys. Like each of you, if you think about your friend and family pool, people who you would know this particular fact about, how many people do you know who do something as basic as change their own oil in their car?
Sure, like most people.
Yeah, quite a few.
All right, cool. So that's interesting. In the general population, and I think that's indicative of the company, because in the general population, very few people actually do that. And despite the fact that, if the 4 of us are talking about it, right, it's a pretty simple process. You're talking about unscrewing a single bolt, letting a liquid drain out of the machine, screwing the bolt back in and then refilling. It's a pretty simple process, all told. However, if you go through most of the US, oil change places just litter every city because people are scared to do it themselves. Not because they're lazy or because they're, decide that they'd rather outsource this because it's a dirty job but honestly out of fear, saying, oh, what if I got it wrong? What if I do something wrong to my car? And the idea is that comes from the fact that if somebody else does it, if it doesn't work, it's not your fault that it's screwed up. And this attitude is widely held, especially in the US, in regards to health. People don't take care of their health, and then they wait for something to go so chronically wrong that they can no longer function. And then they go to the doctor and say, fix it. And it's not a process of involvement. So even on the most basic level, the shift is mostly one of saying, look, yeah, a doctor may have gone to school to be a doctor, but I don't need to be a doctor. I need to learn about my body, not everybody, just mine. And this is especially important for people who suffer from rare diseases, orphan diseases, or have something that's, gone long undiagnosed, that, they suffer from something and the various doctors and specialists they've gone to have thrown up their hands. If you have health, which we all do, you can become an expert on the health of your particular body without spending 12 years doing it. What doctors go to school to do is to learn how to administer to a lot of different people with a lot of different things and a lot of different situations. You can become an expert on your own health fairly quickly. And if you have an ailment, you can very quickly become better informed than your general practitioner on your particular sickness. And that's step zero. You want to talk about the barrier to entry. It's the will to act and being willing to say, yeah, I'm going to learn and I'm going to get involved. That's step zero.
Yeah, definitely. That's certainly if somebody is diagnosed with, let's just say diabetes or whatever, I guess one of the first things they should do is learn everything they can about looking after themselves, because that's something they're going to have to do every single day.
Yeah, and we'll learn about like the food, the properties. They're gonna know, oh, I can eat that. That's gonna affect me. The same can apply to other illness or sickness that they have.
And honestly, we should all do that before we get sick. We should be thinking about what we're eating. We should be thinking about how we're exercising. We should be thinking about how well we're hydrating. We should be thinking about how well we're resting. We should be thinking about our air quality. All of these things are really basic, but so often our idea of healthcare is really sick care. We wait until we're ill to address anything.
Yeah. That's very true.
Yeah.
So, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Dan.
It's just I don't want to hijack the conversation towards depression and stuff like that, but there's a decent amount of it running around in kind of the circles that we run in tech and hacking stuff in general. And when you're in that state of mind, it's hard to prioritize eating right and getting exercise and doing stuff like that at all. Like that's the
absolutely.
You know what I mean? It's the furthest thought from your mind.
Yeah, let's say that a lot of us have sleep deprivation.
Yeah, I'm going on 2 days no sleep. Is there?
Yeah, so there are these dangers, and that is a thing. Addressing mental health is a very tricky thing, and depression, as you point out, is debilitating, and as are all illnesses. And of course, that is a problem that having the wherewithal to start addressing things while you are ill is a very difficult cycle out of which to break.
Yeah, and so to kind of tail end the question, What do you have any tips that you can think of that you could maybe give some of the listeners that you found have been successful with people and patients?
So for depression specifically, I actually have a trick that is potentially quite effective that hasn't been published yet, because it's part of a research that I'm currently involved in with some medical professionals. But regarding depression, there's this interesting phenomenon, which is that the hippocampus starts to atrophy. It's a particular part of the brain. It's, if you'd like to look into its structure and function, there are really easy ways to research that. But roughly speaking, there's a part of your brain that starts to actually shrink when you're depressed. Now, there's an interesting fact, which is that the other situation under which that part of the brain atrophies is when people exclusively use turn-by-turn directions.
Oh, interesting.
That part of the brain also deals with navigation and sort of placements, spatially and geographically. So there is a potential process to reverse that atrophy outwardly. And so if you take a map, an actual map, and then decide to use that map to navigate to a place that you haven't been before. And it doesn't have to be out in the wilderness. It can be in the very city in which you live. You just pick a location that you haven't gone to, and you look at the map, and you don't use GPS, and you use the map to orient yourself, and you look around, and then you make your way, and you use that as a practice. That can reverse that hippocampal atrophy. And the reversal of hippocampal atrophy will also combat depression. It is a really weird connection, but I was lucky enough to stumble across this with some other medical researchers, and we've been writing it up for the past I don't know, it's been almost 2 years now. But this is a potentially very cheap, easy therapy for people who are depressed. So
that's pretty good stuff. Yeah, I never heard of that before at all, and I think
that's some real dope research. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's cool because at the same time it makes sense. I don't use cell phone science maybe 2 years, and I've been like reading card and everything, and I'm more happy since I don't use cell phone. That might sound stupid, but at the same time, I'm just linking both right now because I wasn't aware of this study.
Yeah, it was a wonderful thing to uncover, and there remains a lot of research to be done about why it works or its efficacy rate, but it suggests certain things about navigation, our place in the world, what we think about place in the world in terms of specific location and purpose, and a lot of other subtler things that I think hopefully will be picked up by researchers who are more expert on this sort of thing than I am.
It's pretty interesting. It seems like the organization has quite a wide range of areas. What are the largest areas you think that can make a difference? Like, is it the basic medicines, or is it more therapeutical stuff? Like, where do you think the biggest thing made?
Yeah. So our flagship project is the Apothecary Microlab. It's an open source automated chemical reactor that allows people to manufacture the active pharmaceutical ingredients in medications. And so if there's something that's entirely inaccessible, you can make it without having a background in science or chemistry. The software will walk you through the process, and it'll automate all of the things that are easy to screw up, long, boring, and at the end you can get your active pharmaceutical ingredient and administer it yourself by packing it into pills or pressing it with tablets or whatever your route of administration is. that's our main thing. I mean, we've had a lot of other projects come up along the way because they fit with our goals. However, that's the one that we're working to get to a nice solid beta stage so that we can have it in the open source community and people can pick it up, and people will hopefully figure out ways to do things with it that we haven't thought of. People will figure out ways to improve it that we hadn't considered, and it'll just be a tool for everybody. And we can dissolve as an organization, or at least move on to other things.
Yeah. Now, looking at your website, I didn't. Like, you guys are like behind the EpiPencil.
Yes, that was us.
You want to tell us a bit more about that? Because I feel like that's a really, really cool thing that a lot of people might have heard about before.
Yeah. So we came above ground in 2016 in the summertime, and we took advantage of the fact that Martin Shkreli was in the news, and we manufactured Daraprim on stage, and I cracked his cell phone and called him from stage, and I threw pillows to the audience, and we had a good time. That was at Hackers on Planet Earth, and that was fun. And we got back to work on the Apothecary Micro Lab, and because people had sort of heard about us, we were getting a lot of notifications or letters, I should say. We were getting letters through the website. People were contacting us saying, hey, why aren't you doing something about the EpiPen? And we were saying, well, we're talking about pharmaceutical manufacture, not devices. This is kind of not what we do. And people would write back and be like, well, you should. And this happened over and over and over. And finally, I got on our on Semaphore, which is our secure communications channel. It's like Slack, but encrypted. And we were like, well, should we do this? And everybody said, yeah, we should do this. And so we sort of looked into it like, okay, EpiPens are important. If people don't get them in a very short amount of time, they die. And a lot of people can't afford them. What's going wrong here? So we started looking at manufacturing adrenaline, and the thing is like, that's not really the thing. Adrenaline's easy to get. And we're like, well, what's the gap here? And this is just a delivery mechanism. Oh, this is silly. Yeah, we could build this. How hard could it be? So we started looking for off-the-shelf auto-injectors. And the interesting thing is that there aren't very many out there. There's the EpiPen. There's a glucogen pen that's designed for diabetics. And that doesn't use a syringe. It uses sort of a baggie and a needle. And then the only other preloaded auto-injectors out there that we found were for anti-chemical and biological warfare agents. And those are exclusively manufactured for the American and Israeli governments. So we weren't going to get our hands on those. And so we were kind of dead in the water for a little bit until one of the people in the collective found this reloadable auto-injector that's designed for needle-phobic diabetics. It's just people who don't like shooting themselves up. So you load the syringe into this spring-loaded mechanism, you screw it shut, you set it, you press it into wherever, and then you press the button and it does it all for you. And so we took some time because we had to find large gauge needles that would mate with small syringes, but eventually we found a combination that worked. And then we realized that, yeah, for $30 to set up, you could have your own EpiPen equivalent that we call the EpiPencil, and you could reload it for $3, which is great. And on top of that, you can test it, because shortly after we released it, and I should say shortly after the FDA said, don't make your own EpiPen equivalent, Mylan Pharmaceuticals recalled something like 80,000 EpiPens because they were failing. And there are these just absolutely heartbreaking stories of people dying because their EpiPens didn't work. And the problem is, with a single-use tool, you can't test it. You hold it in faith that it will work. and you use it, and it will either work or it won't. And there's just this terrible story about a father with a child with some allergy who was on a transatlantic flight. The food wasn't labeled properly. She went into anaphylaxis. He had 2 EpiPens with him. The first one failed, and then the second one failed, and then he sat there watching her die. It was just so unbelievably tragic. And with something that's reloadable and open source that you built yourself, you can test as much as you want and make sure that it works because it's reusable. So we're very proud of that work, and we hope that some people out there have managed to get some use out of it and managed to get some relief from the economic hostage taking that is taking place in the American medical system.
That's some real cool stuff. So, so you have those 2 projects you're talking about. Is there anything else like in the works?
Oh yeah, well we have a handful of things going on. We're working on a sort of anarchist cookbook for medicine. We're calling the Anarchist Medical Book, sort of a guide on how to seize control of your own health in any realm, because there are a lot of moving parts to health. It's a complicated process, and if you want to dive in, as you suggested earlier, it can be a bit daunting to say like where do I start? So we're hoping to develop some literature so that people who wish to start that process can get a little more involved a little more easily. Something that we've been working on for a while is reviving some technology that was actually developed 20 years ago and then faded away because of really, really silly bureaucratic reasons. But there was a guy who genetically engineered a bacteria with which you can populate your mouth with it, and it will keep you cavity free for the rest of your life. So you could literally take this bacteria, brush your teeth with it once, and never get another dental cavity for the rest of your life. And given that cavities both lead to vascular disease and heart disease and a number of other things, and that it predominantly affects people who are disenfranchised from access to health, people who are poor, people who are marginalized in other ways, class-based or otherwise, are disproportionately affected by dental problems. It could be a huge win to be able to essentially post-vaccinate people against cavities.
Just to be clear on that, though, you're saying there's room for research in this kind of a thing, right?
So I'm not quite sure what you mean. I can give you a little more technical on how it works, though.
Just trying to clarify is that you're not saying that this is a definite thing that people should research and put some kind of bacteria in their mouths and they'll never get a cavity again. Like that's something that I'm sure needs quite a bit of scientific research to prove, and
I think you mean like, is it ready for the public to start doing research about it, or there's still unknown, like after effect?
So the research has been done. Let me back up a little bit and give you guys some technical detail, and I think it'll all come clear. Dental cavities are an infectious disease. We don't think of them as an infectious disease, but they are. The reason that you get a cavity is that there is a bacterium that lives in your mouth that's a strain of strep. It's called Strep mutans. It has mutated over the years, over the millennia, to have the ability to grip the surface of the human tooth. Most bacteria can't do that. And what it does is it eats sugar and it excretes lactic acid. Lactic acid is an acid, it breaks down tooth enamel, and once it perforates the surface of the tooth, then other bacteria can set up shop and everything sort of goes downhill from there. What was done in 1998 was that there was a dentist named Dr. Jeffrey Hillman who took this particular strain of strep and he did 2 particular edits on the gene, one of which made it a super colonizer. So if you put this in an ecosystem with the original strain of strep mutans, it will outcompete it and take its place in the ecosystem. And the second thing he did was he altered its metabolism genetically so that instead of excreting lactic acid, it excretes alcohol dihydrogenase, which is inert for the surface of the tooth. So when you put this into the mouth of a human subject or even a rat subject, they tested rats first before they did humans, it just changes the microbiome of the mouth and cavities are no longer a problem. It's a really brilliant solution, and for the tests that were done, it was successful. He ultimately ran out of money because he wasn't a multinational pharmaceutical corporation and wasn't able to push things through the FDA. And so he never ultimately got approval. And, you know, when he turned 70 or something, he retired and sort of just gave up on it. But it's something to which we should all have access.
Yeah, that is some amazing research.
Yeah, so did you have more questions on that?
Dan?
Huh? No. I mean, like, I hear what you're saying on it. But the person that made the discovery, is obviously within. I guess I just kind of disagree with the notion that it's for life when the guy is still alive, so he couldn't have possibly done tests for people's full entire lives, right? But I think if the you know what I'm trying to get at. But if the data set,
that's a faulty logic there. I mean, sure, yeah, there isn't data for people's entire lives, sure, but there's no mechanism for anything to be reversed. I mean, he did this with people, and a dozen years running, nothing's reversed. So there's nothing to suggest that the upsetting of the mouth microbiome would revert. I mean, I suppose if you went in with some like broad spectrum antibiotics and wiped out everything in your system, that you could potentially repopulate it with the regular strep mutans that would start eating holes in your teeth again. But in terms of how microbiomes in the human mouth work, it's a stable solution. And he has a number of data points on that. And I mean, of course, sure, who knows? And biology is complicated, so nothing's ever guaranteed for sure. All manner of weird shit could happen. But in terms of what we understand of biology, it would be a permanent solution.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, because it's different than a normal, like, it's different than how you view medicine normally, right?
Right. It's a biologic solution. It's not pharmacological. I mean, and again, if you think about the sorts of things that you're given to do for oral hygiene, they're all based around the same thing. The reason you're brushing your teeth is you're trying to break up the biofilm that builds up on your teeth that's made up of strep mutans so that it's not eating into your teeth. When people say it's good to have fluoridated water or use fluoride mouthwash, it's because fluorine is toxic to strep mutans and kills it. Everything circles around this idea of trying to mitigate that particular bacterium. And so to merely take that bacterium and de-weaponize it, as it were, against the tooth, is a solution of permanence.
Oh, that is interesting. So like what would be happen if like you use like the same sort of like toothpaste that kills the one strain against say like the other like with your new mutated strain?
Well, unless you wipe it out again, unless you wiped out your microbiome entirely, it would come back. So I suppose it's possible if you were, if you use something extraordinarily strong, or if you were brushing your teeth with some, I don't know, doxycycline or something, that was, but or something that was, extremely strong. I suppose it's possible that you could reset your microbiome and fall back into that. But again, if you did that, you could just re-administer it and you'd be back into the category of stability and safety. So.
It is a lot of interesting research. I really appreciate research done on bacteria because there is so much you could do with, bacteria that, because they're searching in bacteria that breaks down and like fungus that breaks down plastics and all this other crazy shit. But I feel like there's a lot of really neat room for research there, and that's definitely one of the more interesting ones.
Yeah, they're doing a number of good lines of research on human microbiome bacteria. E.g., they found a disproportionately high number of a particular strain of bacteria in the gut of many high-performance athletes, which is really interesting. So to sort of see the interplay between microorganisms in your system and the way the human biology works. There have been a number of things also linked to gut health in the microbiome and obesity, and gut health in the microbiome and mental health. So it's fascinating to look at. And of course, when people talk about things like, well, wouldn't this be a nice panacea? I can just put this in. Works. Gut health is a little more complicated because you're feeding it all the time. So the idea that you can put a new bacteria in your gut and stop being obese is only half true. You need to put that bacteria in large amounts in your gut and then start eating the sort of food that will cause it to survive. There's sort of a two-way street there, right? Part of the reason that microbiome gets unbalanced is if you're eating a bunch of toxic junk food that's protein poor and full of additives, those bacteria that are helpful start to die out. So it's a nonlinear model. It's complicated. There are a lot of moving parts, but it's really fascinating to see what the researchers are doing, and we're learning a lot more about how our biology works in a grander, more holistic sense.
Yeah, for sure. It's something that have a really strong interest in. So it's really neat to hear like the comorbidity of like mental disorders and gut problems. So
yeah, it's huge, and I feel like soon we're going to get a lot more data, and we're going to be able to do more with manipulating those sort of things. I mean, already people with digestive issues have been doing pretty well by repopulating their gut and then changing their diet. A lot of people who have gut issues get discouraged because changing their diet doesn't do it by itself, because they're fighting this uphill battle with their microbiome. So if you can sort of reset and change your diet, you get to sort of start fresh. You get a new lease on gut health, which is wonderful.
Yeah. Are there any other like specific areas besides like bacteria and whatnot that you're like super hopeful in as far as like advancements in medicine and whatnot?
Oh yeah, I mean there are a lot, and I'm always trying to stay abreast of new things that are coming up, because things, the pipeline that it takes from the inception of something to somebody actually having commercial access to it is years and years. And it's very disappointing for somebody who says, oh, there's research in the field of my particular ailment or a therapeutic that I'd like to have access to. And it's like, well, wait a few years and maybe you'll be able to buy it, versus like, well, maybe you could make it yourself. But there are a lot of things out there that are very exciting. There's a new implant that contains pre-exposure prophylaxis, which is extraordinarily exciting to me. Currently, the biggest problem with the HIV epidemic is that people who are infected have to stick to a very strict regimen of daily antiretrovirals to keep their load below detectable. For people who are not infected with the virus, who are taking pre-exposure prophylaxis, so if they're exposed to the virus, they don't contract it, also have to stick to a very regimented structure of medications to make sure that therapy remains effective. Now, the biggest problem is that if you miss a dose because you have a stomach flu, or you take it at the wrong time, or you take it without food instead of with food, then you end up out of sync, and your viral load spikes or your resistance spikes. And if you could take that out of the equation, then everything could be better. Now, if you remember, as early as the late 90s, there was an implant that was for birth control called Norplant. And you got a small implant in your upper arm, and it lasted for 5 years. They since developed something called Norplant 2, which is similarly structured, that lasts for even longer. And they're utilizing the same technology to use pre-exposure prophylaxis. So you could get an implant in your subcutaneous layer that would last for a decade, and you wouldn't have to worry about exposure to HIV. This is huge. And this delivery mechanism, which is a copolymer matrix in a silicone tube that just sits under your fat layer, could deliver all sorts of things and keep people safe from a lot of diseases, and keep people also in therapy for diseases they've already contracted. So I'm really hopeful for that, and there are a lot of different applications for that that can be very exciting.
Of course, there's PrEP as well, which is amazing. Amazing success rates with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, how can people get involved in with your organization?
Yeah. So at fourthiesvinegar.org, or if you're paranoid, we're also on the Onion Network. There's a contact page. Just send us an email, and please rest assured that we will read them eventually. We sometimes get swamped with a lot of them, but we're always looking for people who'd like to get involved regardless of skill set. We have a lot of different teams. We have hardware, software, publicity, online, strategy, logistics, law, research, medicine, chemistry, all of these things. So regardless of your skill set, even if you feel like you have no skill set, you're just enthused. If you feel like you have no skill set, everybody has a skill set. Just say hi, and we can start the conversation potentially, and you could come start making the world a little healthier.
I think that's a noble way to kind of start wrapping things up, and a noble thing to end on. I mean, making the world a healthier place, getting people in a better place, both physically and mentally, is something I think we can all agree needs to be done, right?
Of all the causes of all of the causes that are out there, of all the things that need to be addressed, personal health has to come first, because if you are unwell, you can't do anything else. So you have to look after your health first.
Yeah,
And it
absolutely.
has the side effect of taking money out of the pockets of big pharma, which I think we can all agree is good.
What's
I won't complain.
What's your the I guess big pharma? what's one of the medications you that really just gets to you? You really just don't like it.
A medication I don't like, or a medication that I don't like the way it's being handled?
You can answer
I think
however you feel.
Handle is probably the best.
Yeah,
option.
yeah.
Well, so Valdi is the one that always makes my skin crawl, because this is one of the most incredible pharmaceutical technologies to ever be developed. It actually will wipe out hepatitis C, which is a virus. Usually you can't expunge a virus from the body, but this does it. And it's a complicated mechanism, but it drains the viral reservoir, and it's really incredible. So people who are suffering from hepatitis C don't have to just manage it. They can actually expunge the virus from their body entirely. It's incredible. You take one pill a day for 12 weeks and continue with antivirals, and it's gone. The problem is these pills are $1,000 a piece. And so if you have $82,000 burning a hole in your pocket, then sure, hepatitis C is not your problem anymore. But if you don't, then you still have to manage hepatitis C. And hepatitis C is a huge problem.
Yeah.
A huge, huge problem. It's much more virulent than HIV, and it's spreading faster and faster in the US.
Oh yeah, totally.
And there's absolutely zero reason, except for the way that intellectual property law continues to function, that people shouldn't have access to it. We could wipe out hepatitis C in humans, more or less, the way that, polio or smallpox kind of went out of style.
Yeah.
But it's not being done because making people healthy and wiping out a disease is not profitable. What's profitable is keeping people sick and keeping them coming back for more.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I actually just have a story of a guy I know who had an interferon allergy. And so there was no, that was, and it was right as this was becoming, an actual thing.
Just
and they
for
literally said,
people,
well,
just so people are all aware, interferon's medication that helps rebuild the liver and liver-related viruses, right?
Yeah, more or less. It's like what they normally they do for Hep C patients.
Oh, okay.
They used to do, as I understand it. But until this came out, they said, well, your diagnosis is that you're going to die. You're going to die because there's nothing else that we have for you, really.
It's so irritating to hear about that sort of thing where when the medical community just shrugs and says, well, sometimes people are just unlucky. That's just horrific. That should never happen.
Yeah. So it is, like I said, it's personal with me when I hear you talk about stuff like that. Yeah. Increasing the ability for people to get these medications that otherwise they would not, they just die without.
Yeah.
It's personal for all of us because there before the grace, we all are susceptible to any number of diseases, and it's only a matter of luck and or time that we haven't fallen under that bus ourselves. Each one of us is just as fragile as the next person, and those of us who are healthy are just lucky. And that's all.
Absolutely.
That's very true.
So just while we've been talking about this, I just wanted to point out as well, I guess we should probably say that, just reiterate that if you do choose to partake in any of this, you may be breaking a law where you are. So we don't condone breaking laws, but check.
I do, but that's just me.
Yeah, ThugCrowd does not condone breaking laws. This is all information. It's very interesting. If you are interested, look it up. But that is, we're not telling you to do any of this. We're just telling you about it. So
and we're all carrying.
That said, the Four Thieves Vinegar Collective thinks that people should not be the most upstanding citizens in the graveyard, and that it's better to break the law and live than it is to continue to abide by it and die.
Amen.
Well said. Any
Gentlemen, it's been
final
really great
words?
speaking. And thanks so much for having me on. And keep up the good work. And maybe we'll talk again sometime in the future when we've broken out some more stuff.
Sounds great.
Yeah, definitely. That. Good luck with all the endeavors, and I hope a lot of people get well.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, gentlemen. So do I. We'll be in touch.
Definitely.
All right, take it easy. Thank you.
Have a
Take
good
care.
one.
All right, that about wraps it up for us. We I don't know. I don't have many last words except for shut the fuck up and get a lawyer. Any last words, Shell?
Thanks for sticking with us through through all the shit today.
Yeah.
Next week we'll I guess we'll check our stream a little bit earlier, get things back to normal, and if you
hell yeah. All right,
stick around and we'll see you guys next week.
Gonna play you out with Shy FX. Peace.
Later.
You can't put your along the shy effects. And when we come is murderation, all original gangster man. Here when we tell them no, yeah, me come and imitate, originate, we come to originate. Alright, mate, now what you doing, mate? Here when we tell them we come from gears, man, I'm gonna stop that. Watch me tell them, rude boy. Watch this. Nanini wo, zing na na no no no. Nanini wo, zing na na no no no. Nanini wo, zing na na no no no. Yeah, yeah. No 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 no. Bad boys in a London, rude boys in a England, bad boys in a Jamaica, rude boys in a Kingston. Watch out, you never know the gangster. Me say them in a jungle. Well, yeah. You never know the article. Me say them in a jungle. Well, yeah. You never know shy effects, man. Big in a jungle. Well, yeah. You never know you can watch it. Big in a jungle. When we tell everyone, watch it now, man. Me a the nutter, original man, nutter, original man, nutter, original man, nutter, original man. Me a the nutter, me better than the bad boy 'cause they a fear. Lock off the jet where you call Skywalker. In a one school, them call me troublemaker. Better than the predator and the dominator. Better than the garden and the dandada. So who try your thing? You ain't quite butter. Until you try your flex man, not a show the border. Dibby, we tell you what, me ball. And in the world, sing na na no no no. And in the world, sing na na no no no. And in the world, sing na na no no no. Yeah. No no no. Bad boys in a London, rude boys in a England, bad boys in a Jamaica, rude boys in a Kingston. Watch out, you never know the gangster. Me say them in a jungle. Well, yeah. You never know the article. Me say them in a jungle. Well, yeah. You never know shy effects, man. Big in a jungle. Well, yeah. You never know you can watch it through the jungle. Well, me a the nutter, original man, nutter, original man, nutter, original man, nutter, original man. Me a the nutter, me better than the bad boy 'cause they a fear. Lock off the jet where you call Skywalker. In a one school, them call me troublemaker. Better than the predator and the dominator. Better than the garden and the dandada. Until you can't patch him and I can't show the border. Yes, I am fix man, pull up on no lighter. We tell the people, even a rude boy man, I am a murderer. Kill up any DJ on the corner. You hear me? Shy FX him is a murderer. I kill up any DJ on the corner. We tell the even a rude